I want to begin this episode with a warning that some content you may hear may be disturbing or triggering, and I feel it is essential that we share these stories and the important work that is being done to eradicate predatory behavior. Years ago, I read Gavin de Becker's book, The Gift of Fear, and for the first time in my life, rather than dismiss my intuition, I welcomed it and appreciated it. As a kid, I was always told that I made a mountain out of a molehill. When I said I thought something was off, what I didn't realize was that I was using my intuition. And with regular rebuking from my family, I learned not to trust my intuition, even when it proved to be right on many occasions. Not all occasions, but many occasions. My family could never acknowledge that I had predicted something that actually did happen, and they often never recalled that I had shared any warning or observation. So, just to give you a couple quick examples, I predicted my parents' divorce long before it happened, and they never really saw them fight. I predicted one of my brothers would be hospitalized, which ended up being pretty serious at the time, and I predicted a family member had an eating disorder before that was ever a recognized issue, and when it was, she had to be hospitalized as well. These moments of intuition weren't divine. I want to say that they weren't divine. As much as I'm faithful in a lot of ways, there were, in fact, observable signs that my family chose to ignore and tried to teach me through shame and what felt to them like over-exaggeration to ignore them as well. Some signs I couldn't explain because I was really pretty young, and it was either because I didn't have the language to put my feelings or observations or because I didn't have actual proof of reality to what others perceived as irrational fears, and so they were minimized. I was minimized. This constant dismissing of my natural intuitive sense taught me to ignore my intuition, which is actually something I struggle with even today. I imagine many people do, and especially women, because we are taught to ignore our intuition rather than pay attention to it or even celebrate it. We can misperceive something, but more often than not, if we don't question it and acknowledge that something just doesn't feel right, the reality of any given situation eventually is often revealed. Welcome to Small and Gutsy, our podcast featuring nonprofits and social enterprises under $10 million. My name is Dr. Scherck Wittcoff, and I'm excited and proud to be your host. We hope you'll love the stories as much as we do, and perhaps you will find needed services, a job, volunteer, invest in, or donate. Small and Gutsy is not just a podcast, but a 501c3 nonprofit, and named number 8 on FeedSpot's top 30 social impact podcasts. We also ranked 9th by Million Podcasts for their top youth empowerment podcast for some of our episodes. We are truly proud of these rankings and of our vision to spotlight every smaller nonprofit and social enterprise to raise their visibility. So please help me with our vision and send me any organization you'd like featured to laura@smallandgutsy.org. Learning to reclaim and trust my intuition became not just a personal journey, but a life skill. And that's why the mission of our guest and the organization she founded is so incredibly meaningful to me and should be important to you. Gavin de Becker states intuition is always right in at least 2 important ways. It is always in response to something, and it always has your best interest at heart. I am better now at appreciating my intuition, but it has taken a rewiring of the messaging I received as a child, a young adult, and in my adult romantic relationships. You don't have to know the exact reason you feel a certain way. You just need to recognize the feeling as valid and respond to that validity without excuse. I wish I had had these tools as a much younger person, and yet I firmly believe that we are never too old to learn something, and particularly when it is this important and potentially life-saving. This brings me actually to an incredibly important organization, one that tragically was born from a real-life horror story. Always Bev's mission is to educate and empower individuals with the tools needed to recognize and prevent predatory behavior. Always Bev is dedicated to honoring my guest sister, Beverly, whose life was tragically cut short by gun violence at the hands of her fiancé. Always Bev was founded after his release from prison in 2018. Their personal safety course has been described as life-changing and has been very well received by universities, organizations, and corporations nationwide. Although many women take their course, their content can also be designed for men. This course equips individuals with essential safety skills and knowledge to prevent targeted behavior, covering critical areas such as situational awareness, threats involving weapons, charm and manipulation tactics. And I have to just comment on that as just a sidebar, is that we don't realize sometimes when someone is so charming that it is just manipulation and doesn't come with a genuine sincerity. And I loved that Barb, who founded the organization, put that as part of the integrity of this organization. It's so important. Identifying warning signs, relationship red flags, the connection between alcohol and violence, the importance of strong body language, the power of intuition. Their tagline is empowering communities with life-changing safety skills. Barb Jordan, Bev's sister, has been featured as a personal safety expert on ABC Good Morning and ABC News Los Angeles, NBC News, WXSM Nashville, and KPRC Houston, as well as on CBS, The Morning Wrap, and Inside Edition. Barb has traveled the world in her own right as an elite athlete, coach, broadcaster, and instructor. As a former collegiate, 3-time All-American, 3-time national champion, and 7-time gold medalist as a USA softball team member and coach, Barb is experienced in skilled learning and teaching. As a victim of predatory violence and trauma, Barb channeled her experience and knowledge gained through years of athletics and coaching into studying the skills of vigilance on situational awareness and how to predict unwanted and concerning behavior. Barb is trained in Krav Maga, and her instruction provides key fundamentals with the importance of body language, using your voice and self-defense techniques. Barb is also certified in active shooting training. Always Bev provides the platform through which Barb is able to share her passion of educating others on personal safety at home, campus, work, and social environments. Her commitment to preventing violence and crime with her astute teaching style has captivated audiences. Barb has already positively affected many lives, and I'm hoping that her voice is spread further through her joining the Small and Gutsy family. So let's get started. Welcome, Barb. First, let me share with you, although it was so long ago and it's truly a legacy, I'm so sorry for the loss of Bev. I can't even imagine. And you have really given her the legacy that guides and helps others. And you have quite a compelling story about her, and I imagine you've encountered many situations as an elite athlete and coach. And clearly your passion runs deep. So I want you to start this conversation anywhere where you feel it's significant. But personally, as I was looking through your material and wishing I had taken your course, actually, which I may have to at some point, would love to, I was really impressed that it is not just violence-focused or typical things that we would anticipate, but it goes so much deeper into recognizing what can look like, as I said earlier, sort of a manipulative behavior that is in fact control and has a deep-seated sense of potential injury in the long run. So I just loved that, and I'm really impressed.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on your podcast and for the nice introduction. I love what you talked about with intuition, just to start with. I am a huge believer in it, and I believe that intuition can keep us safe. I believe that intuition can save our lives. And the one thing I want everyone to know about intuition is this: it doesn't need to be defined. A lot of times, specifically women, they'll say, you know, that guy over there that gives me a bad feeling, or, oh, I've got a bad feeling about this. You tell someone about a scenario and they want concrete evidence. What'd they do? Well, what'd they say? And when you go, nothing, they poo-poo it away, they dismiss it. And I'm like, it is the feeling. And so we want to talk about the ways our intuition speaks to us. For men, the hair on your neck, the hair on your arms go up. For women, a lot of times we feel it in our stomach. That's why they say, trust your gut. But another way that our intuition speaks to us is through grim humor. It is through jokes. Like, I just met a woman the other day with a physical therapist, and she goes, I was just in the room with this dentist, and I swear when I walked out, I said, God, I felt like he wanted to chop me up into a million pieces. Ha, 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 ha. And I said, that's your intuition. When you make jokes about people that they're capable of doing something violent, that's your intuition speaking to you. And I often use the Uvalde school shooter. When he was a student on that campus, the nickname that the other kids had for him was school shooter. That's grim humor.
Wow.
And that's intuition.
You know, it's interesting because I think some people would think, oh, that's predictive in a way that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But the truth is, the intuition comes first.
Yeah.
And the prophecy comes later. And I think that is an important distinction. I so appreciate you saying that because I think we're taught totally not to pay attention to it, right?
I don't know if we're taught not to, but a lot of times as women, oh, you're being so dramatic. I want to tell people, shut up. If I have a concern, respect my feelings. This is how I feel, and it is 100% valid. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I don't feel wrong, and so I'm going to roll with this right now. If I don't trust somebody, if I don't want to sit with somebody, if I don't want to go and have somebody join our circle, I'm going to stand by that, and no one's going to change my mind.
I love that. And it's okay to be wrong because it's better to be safe.
That's right. Yep.
I'm really learning this and relearning this, both in my own personal relationships, because there have been reasons at times where I haven't wanted to engage with someone and there's no factual evidence.
Right.
It's exactly what you said. So are you okay taking us back to how this came about in terms of your personal story or your sister's story? Share whatever you want, but I think it's really significant that you took really a tragedy, a family tragedy, and turned it into lessons for others. A lot of people wouldn't have done that, and you are trying to give this gift to other people.
Yeah, it's such a long process, but just to start with, many years ago in the San Fernando Valley, my sister Beverly was murdered by her fiance. And they had an 8-month relationship. And so there was a lot of manipulation during that time, although we didn't see it. So I didn't know all these things until after the fact. And so it kind of started like this. Bev was beautiful. She was strong. I mean, she didn't take stuff from people. She knew how to stand up for herself. And she met this guy who, on paper, served in the Marines, was working on his third master's degree, job in aerospace, made a lot of money, shiny SUV, all those things. It looked great. And so after 3 months, I remember my mom calling me saying, Bev got engaged last night. And I said the magic words of intuition. That's weird. That doesn't sound like Bev. Whenever you use the phrase, that's weird, or that's suspicious, that's intuition. But he had a plan, like, it's okay if we're married quickly because we're not going to be married for another year. We'll still get to know each other. And then after 6 months, he said, well, since we're going to be married, we should move in together. And then they moved in together. And then he said, once they moved in together, since we're going to be married and we're living together, we should join our bank accounts together. So they joined their bank accounts together. And then right towards the end, about, 7 months, 8 months in, he said, since we're going to be married, we should have life insurance policies. And of course, that all sounded good to my family because my dad owned an insurance company. And so, we never thought anything of it. Now, there was a lot of things that Bev did not disclose to us that she knew about him, that if we had known that he was divorced twice by the time he was 30, we would have been like red flags. Or that his former wife and son fled in the middle of the night, red flag. Like there were things we did not know about him. And in today's world, there's many ways to investigate people, and I highly recommend you do your homework. So during that time, during that 8-month time that he was with their family, there were a few things that stood out to me. There are many times where I said the phrase, that's weird, which was the last time I saw Bev, which was on Thanksgiving Day, when she showed up about 10 in the morning, and I go, hey, and I go, where's Rich? And she said, oh, he's working, he'll join us later. And I said, that's weird. People don't work on Thanksgiving Day. I didn't say that out loud, but I thought it. Or at their engagement party, I kept walking around my parents' house thinking, where's Rich? And he was always outside. He was always in the shadow. And that's the one thing about predators. Predators can only engage for short amounts of time. They come in, they act right, and they get out. And that was Rich. And he did that a lot over those 8 months. So there were many signs. The first time Bev's identical twin sister met Rich, he was going to go to the pool. And very first time he met Bev's identical twin sister, he walked into the room wearing a Speedo. And Karen said, oh my God, who does that? She didn't make a big deal about it because we didn't want to, Bev was happy. But there were all these times where we were like, that's not normal. That's weird stuff. And so he tested the waters quite often. And when he killed my sister for that life insurance policy, just 4 days after eating Thanksgiving dinner with my family, after playing catch with the football with my brothers and I, acting like he was one of us, we never said this. Oh, I can't believe Rich did this. He loved her so much. We never said that. We knew Bev loved him.
Interesting.
But I never said, oh, he's so in love with her. He's so good to her. There were no signs of violence, but it was just he was a master manipulator. So much so that he was arrested and charged under the name Eric Lewis. But we didn't know this, and neither did Bev. He had 2 social security numbers.
Oh,
So
God.
now that he's out of prison, he goes by his other social security number, and he moves around this world as Rich Lewis. And could you have a more common name? Could you have a more common name where nobody's going to be able to really identify who you are? So yeah, he's a master.
With 2 social security numbers, didn't that shift after that was discovered?
Again, I don't know what they did when they found that he had 2 social security numbers, but all I know is that now that he's out of prison, he goes by Rich Lewis and he uses the other social security number. So nobody who
can't be
ever meets this
traced.
guy, and he
Right.
is remarried, will ever Google Eric Lewis. If they did, they would see that he's a murderer.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow. It sounds in some way that your sister found him charming, but you all didn't necessarily.
I think we accepted him because she was so happy. I think it was more of an acceptance thing. In today's world, I know that's different. This was over 35 years ago.
Right.
And so, we didn't have social media. We weren't able to do a lot of backtracking. There were moments I have a podcast and I went back and interviewed her friends. And I said, what'd you think when you met this guy? And they all had that intuitive moment. Sometimes it was simply the way he hugged them and he picked them up off the ground. One woman said, he picked my son up and he put him on his lap and I just never took my eyes off of him. I got the weirdest feeling. They're just feelings, So what? So what the son sat on his lap? Again, it's a feeling. It doesn't mean that he's actually doing something.
What's interesting to me is he took liberties. In each of those situations you described, he took liberties that he had not been invited to take.
Yeah.
And I find that to be that's my sort of gut reaction. So it doesn't look like there's anything on the surface wrong,
Right.
but he actually took liberties that he wasn't invited to take.
I use the phrase, he tested the waters a lot.
Perfect.
What could he do to where somebody might say, hey, that's not right. The situation, my mom and dad, now this was 30 years later. My mom tells me this shouldn't say anything for 30 years. She says to me at lunch a few years ago, one night, Rich and Bev came over for dinner and Rich took the bottle of wine and he picked it up off the table and he poured himself a glass of wine and he took that bottle and he put it down by his foot. My parents were very proper. If my mom would have said, oh, Rich, we don't do that here, he would have said, oh, of course, Mrs. Jordan. I don't know what I was thinking. But they do things to see what they can get away with before somebody says something. In today's world, I think we speak up more, but that's how the guy operated.
Fascinating, really fascinating. So, and such a tragedy. So fast forward a little bit, that when he got out of prison, you had the idea that you got to set something up in her name to start warning other people. And so that was a period of time that he was in prison, and you were, I'm sure, being the athlete that you are and going on in your own life. But what was the impetus to say, we have to do something?
Yeah, it was everything to me. When I found out he was getting out, I just thought I have to tell people, not just about him, but about others. Some people, every day there's people getting out of prison and they blend into society. We have brains. We can walk down the street or walk through the mall and be like, ooh, they're no good. Or you could see those people. But the real danger in this world comes from the normal looking individuals. And that's what Always Bev is all about. Always Bev stands for be vigilant. Always be vigilant. Always understand the warning signs. And I talk a lot about warning signs. It could be somebody you don't know, just some guy sitting on a curb or leaning against the wall, no purpose. That's a warning sign. When people don't belong, why would you take your eyes off of somebody like that? They're watching you. And people that wait and watch, they're a predator, 100%.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I'm back in the dating world and I insist on getting a last name and some kind of social handle or something on the internet that tells me this person says who they are, because I've been, people have tried to scam people. And the individuals who say, I'm not comfortable doing that, or I don't want to give you my last name before I share anything about me. And I say, fine. And then they're out.
Yeah.
I'm not interested.
Yeah.
For me, that is a line that I have, because I just feel like if somebody's interested in sharing, they're going to not be afraid to share who they are. And that's no guarantee either.
Yeah, and let's just say, you're on a dating site or introduce however it is, and that's your one standard. Like they have to give you a last name or social media handle, and maybe they're just like so gorgeous, you just toss that rule aside just once. That can end your life.
Yeah.
That can end your life. Like we have boundaries, we have standards. Stick to them.
Right.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it to just do it because something is too good to be true. My sister's killer was 100% too good to be true.
To be true. Yeah, I think that's so important to pay attention to. And in my short time on the dating sites, there have been people who have tried to scam me. And sometimes it feels like a Seinfeld episode, to be quite honest, not to make it light or funny. But, someone will make a statement. One guy was saying he was from a university where he could speak German. He was clearly from a foreign country that was not there, and he was clearly trying to scam me. And so he didn't know I speak German. So I started speaking German to him. Click, and I quickly contacted the site to say this guy's not for real because I wanted to protect other people from this individual. And people will go to all kinds of lengths. They'll make fake websites with their company name on it. I mean, it's really pretty frightening and amazing. So that manipulation piece and that charm piece is such an important distinguishing factor that you put on your list of areas where you build people's skills. I think people don't look at that as predatory, and it's 100% predatory. And by the way, I don't think it even has to be toward money or as an outcome. It could be just a conqueror, like I just want to conquer this person, or I want to get something from them. And so I just love what you're doing. I'm sorry you have to do it because the circumstances, and also in this world, we have to pay attention.
You talk about the internet or this, it's a great place just to kind of talk to people. People can say anything on the internet. People can post anything on social media. When Rich Lewis was released from prison and he created his social media profile, he went on LinkedIn and it says in his bio that he's worked overseas for 30 years. And I'm just like, you kill me. But anybody that believes this stuff, I feel bad for them, but people are pretenders. And I'll tell you, Laura, like there's people in this world, like they're like, I don't want to think that way. I don't want to think bad about people. I'm like, this stuff happens to people every day. If you don't want to be smarter than that, it's just a matter of time before this is going to happen to you. I just had a friend in Southern California. Her home got broken into 6:30 at night. There's 3 guys in her house carrying out a safe. And as nicely and as, without blaming as I could, I said, who's been in your house recently that knows you have a safe? And she insisted that it was just random. And I'm like, it's not random at 6:30 at night. Like, I'm sorry, but that's not random. And you just got to think what you're saying to people. People pay attention to these things.
100%. And again, it goes back to how do we think about the things we're observing, the people we have in our lives, and not to be ashamed or apologize for both vetting individuals, anyone who comes in our life.
Yeah.
And if we have a feeling, this is what I feel so important now. If we have a feeling, we don't have to have an excuse for that feeling.
Right.
Because that's where the thing comes in to say, oh, I don't want to be a bad person. I don't want to think ill of other people. You're not thinking ill of anyone. You're saying this doesn't fit for you.
Totally. The whole thing, yeah.
Right? I'm not saying this person is a bad person. I'm saying for me, I'm not comfortable. I could be totally wrong.
That's it, right. You're not saying they're a killer. You're not saying they're a rapist. You're not saying anything like that. You're just saying you're not coming into my inner circle.
Right.
That's my thought process. Do you guys want to go do that? Or you want to have this worker come into your home? That's fine. But they're definitely not doing work on my home, and I don't need to explain myself.
That's key.
I said no, and that is the end of my sentence.
I love that so much. It's interesting because my son came to visit, who's going to be 30 this year, and he saw a guy he was walking the dogs for me, and he saw a guy kind of lurking around. And he confronted him because he was like, are you looking for something? Can I help you with anything? And then we went out together because we were going to walk to get something to eat. And the guy just was like hanging there. And he didn't look ominous. He really didn't. He looked pretty innocent in a lot of ways. And yet he had no business sort of being there at 8 or 9 at night, just lurking around.
Right.
And so my son kind of got in his face and eventually he left. And he said to me, Mom, you got to really be more vigilant. And I'm thinking, my vigilance would be kind of ignoring and not engaging, but that's different. He wanted to let this guy know that my mom is not alone. There are people here watching and you better get out of here. So, different styles, and he was being very protective. But it was interesting that he was totally tuned into something that did not look right in the neighborhood. And he was
Yeah.
he was right. He was right
Yeah.
to do it. So I really appreciated that. And I'm still learning that no is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
And I don't have to explain myself. And that's a beautiful thing that you're sharing. So I want to know how this program developed, and then how did you get started? And tell me, because you work with all ages, I imagine. So you educated
Yeah.
yourself in this process, and also being a coach, an educator, and an athlete yourself. I imagine you have seen things that have made you, right? I mean, you can share anything that feels comfortable. But I love that you're impacting all ages, because this is never too late to learn.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I'll tell you, like, of course, the majority of people that take my courses are women. But when I have the opportunity to work with men, like I was in Nashville, I went to Memphis, and I taught a session for FedEx, their corporate office.
Great.
And half of it was men, and they never took their eyes off of me. And I find it so interesting because, we always think like, oh, men will keep us safe. Like, men want to know how to stay safe. Like, we think they know, but I'll tell you, when I get to the part about how to use your voice and how to put your hands up to defend yourself, I will tell you that probably 75 to 80% of men do not even know how to put their hands up to defend themselves, like if somebody was to strike them. I find it shocking. But, my dad, born in the Bronx, he taught us all how to put our hands up and how to defend ourselves. But like, everybody should know, like, how to use their voice, how to speak up, how to look somebody in the eye, how to put your hands up to defend yourself, like basic skills.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that men want to know how to stay safe just as much. And a lot of times, of course, in families, they're the person like, considered in charge of safety.
Mm-hmm.
So, I understand that.
I love this for so many reasons, because one of the things I read that you just mentioned it now, is that you look people in the eye. And very often when I see someone who I might not be comfortable, I actually look away.
Yeah.
But instead, give me the rationale for that. I love that. I think it's really empowering, and I have not thought about that.
Yeah, I see you. That's what my eyes say. If I'm on a walk in a populated area and I pass somebody, guys, men innately look you in the eyes. And I'm not talking about staring somebody down. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
I'm just saying that when you pass by somebody and you look up, look them in the eye. And first of all, it lets them know I see you. Second of all, Laura, when you look people in the eye and your stomach goes like this and crunches, you're going to go, God. And you're going to swing your head back and be like, they're going the other way, right? Like, you get information when you look people in the eyes. I've walked by people before and I'm like, oh my God, I think they're a killer. My God. I mean, my stomach's just like in complete knot. And there might be someone out here going like, oh my God, Barb, you're over the top. No, I'm not over the top.
Good.
I'm 100% right. And I know it. My job, what I've done since my sister was killed, is I watch people. I watch people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Not just at airports, not in public places. Everywhere I go, I watch people. And I'll be like, they're in a domestic violence. Just like you talk about the predicting of behavior. This person's a racist. But you watch people. You could tell who they are if you take the time. And when you look people in the eyes, you get feedback. And anybody that doesn't look you in the eye, again, you bring a worker to your home and they're like, yeah, no big deal, but problem. They never look at you. I'm like, you're a yellow flag. Now you're a red flag. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'll call you never. Get out of my house.
I love it.
Like,
I love it. And not being afraid to do that is so key. I think, again, it's finding your voice, which is what you talk about.
Yeah. And I said, look, I'm not saying like, if you're scared for your life, like I'm not talking about being sarcastic and putting yourself in a position of danger, but I'm talking about if someone's approaching you, maybe they want a donation. Maybe they need money because them and their little kid need ride home and they're out of gas. Don't wait till they get right here. When you see them approaching you at a gas station, if you have awareness, you can put your arm up when they're 10 feet away and be like, no, no, no. And they're going to be like, but no, no, no. You just say no.
Right.
Go stop. And if people don't stop, well, that's a threat. And now you have to put your plan into action. Now you know to jump into your car and lock the door, get on your horn, run in sight, whatever it is. But if you don't use your voice, if you don't have awareness, and now these people are in your circle, they're within your 3 feet, you're at a disadvantage. One, if they try to physically assault you. Two, if they have a weapon, like very hard to run from that position.
That's true. That's the arm length thing is really important further than that. And just being able to stop it before it gets to a place where you don't have control of the situation. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I never felt safer out in public than during COVID. Because everybody was 6 feet away from me. I'm like, you can't get me. You can't get me. I can defend myself. I mean, it was just like my guard was completely down. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm good.
Because you didn't have to worry as much. It's true. So from the decision to start this nonprofit and to really be able to help others, how did you develop the coursework, and did your own experiences being a coach and an athlete and an instructor inform how you teach? Because I imagine it does.
Yeah, I've always been able to speak relatively well in public. And I'm very passionate about keeping people safe. That's why I started it. You know, if I didn't care about people's safety, and if I was talking about what to do when there's a fire and you're in a hotel, it wouldn't be as passionate. But I'm very passionate about this topic. And most people tell me that when I'm down, oh my God, you're so passionate. Like, it's very high energy. Like, I grab people from the audience, bring them up. Are you getting gas on the way home? Let's go through this. What's the first thing you do? You know, like, it's a very engaging atmosphere, and it's a friendly atmosphere. The goal is to empower people and to educate people. It's not scary. Like, people go, is your class scary? And I'm like, you know what's scary? You know what's
Not
scary?
taking the class.
If somebody comes up to your car at a red light and has a gun and you don't know what to do, that's scary. You know, like, so I just try to think of all the different scenarios, and the content changes for whoever I'm teaching. Obviously, if I'm speaking to a high school group, that content and the delivery is a lot more mild than it is when I'm speaking to adults, you know, the adults that have been out in the world and they see this stuff all the time. That's going to be a little bit heavier content, but never too heavy, because, you know, the stories are tough. I use different stories that happen out in the world, again, pertaining to the audience. So if it's a place of work, I use, like, you know, what happened to somebody when they stopped by the office at noon on a Saturday. Like, try to make it so it relates to their life. If I'm talking to athletes, well, this athlete came to school at 6 a.m, you know, no one's in the locker room at 6 a.m. It's not a good time to have your earphones on. Like, this is what happened. This is what you should be doing at 6 a.m. So it's not just about, oh, this happened. It's like, if you are in this scenario, these are your skills to stay safe. So I do have consultants. I have an array of 6 wonderful consultants from all different walks of life. Some of them are lieutenants in law enforcement. Some of them are, you know, from the battalion. Some of them are Secret Service. So whenever I have a question, because I did not have all the answers, you know, just because I did research, I'll be like, well, what is the best way for doing this? And what is the best way, like, if you're being stalked online, what is the number one thing that people do? So I have really great consultants that constantly feed me information, so I know that I'm delivering solid information to keep people safe.
So great. And are you the chief instructor? Do you have other people who will instruct?
I am the only instructor.
That's what I was worried about. I was thinking, how can we get this message out? So, you know, I'm a consultant on the side, so I can't help myself. Do you videotape all of the sessions that you do, or you can't because of the audience?
Some places I go, they want to videotape, and I don't allow them to.
Right.
And that's simply because it's my research.
Right.
Wherever I go, it's the presentation, the information and the safety skills are always evolving, but staying the same. But the content changes. But it's so much of my time and energy. I do not allow people to record the sessions. Like when I went to FedEx, We aired at Zoom, I think 7 other countries. They had people in 7 other countries watching the presentation, which was awesome. But I was like, we're not recording this.
Yeah, because it's your material.
Yeah, that's right.
But,
I mean, why bring me back if you have the recording? Like,
right.
I do have to make a living.
Right. Well, the other thing I was thinking is if you were to professionally make recordings and sell them as part of revenue, and the reason I'm saying that is because we want to triple you, quadruple you. We want more of you, right? So if there's a way to eventually develop a course that someone purchases or company purchases, it just might put you in more places simultaneously, even though I don't think it takes the place of the real you. So do you usually do these speaking engagements or do you run classes? Tell me how that works.
So when I first started out, like I started writing letters, like this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. I'm in Nashville. First class I did was in Chicago, Illinois. It was at a fitness center where the women were having a lot of problems with the men. I went up there. I did 3 different events over 2 days for their community, the city of Rosemont. And that's how I got started. Then somebody who went to that event had a women's group. They brought me in like just 2 months later. Then I started from being an athlete. I wrote the coaches that I know, like in the sport of softball. And I'm like, hey, I'm doing this and this is what it is. And little by little, you do one, they're all connected on social media. Somebody else would reach out. Somebody else would reach out. And so I'm absolutely word of mouth, like 100% word of mouth. I think I've spoken in 18 different states.
Wow.
So it's been great. I was asked to go to the University of Idaho after the 4 students were murdered. And then from there, I went over to Washington State. I spoke to their student body. And I'm making great connections because some of my letters of recommendation, like chief of police from Rosemont, I was up there again this past fall. He wrote me a letter of recommendation. The chief of police from Washington State University, they were there when they arrested Brian Koberger. They wrote me a letter. They're coming to my classes. They're like, what are you saying? And what are you teaching? And then when it's done, they're singing me praises. So all of that has been extremely helpful. I was in a sorority. And so on social media, just the support I get from the women in the sorority, I think, you talk about networking when you're young, you don't really know what that is.
Right.
I'm so thankful that I had that because I know that they have played a big part in just making me be more visible than if I was just somebody solo starting from the ground up.
I love that. And I'd love to see more of you doing that. And that's why I wonder if there's a way to create a lecture or course specific to different populations and sell it if you can't be there. However, my guess is it's not as impactful as when you're in front of a group because you can use examples or you can use people in the audience because my guess is that you're very quick at in the moment giving recommendations because people have their own personal story or their own personal circumstance that they haven't thought of. So that's the only downside because you're so gifted that way.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I did create online courses about a year ago because people always said, oh, I couldn't come or so-and-so should have been here. How can I see it? So I did create it.
Okay.
It really you know what? First of all, people don't want to go to a safety class. People don't want to go to a personal safety class. They don't want to go. It's the last thing they want to do. I recognize that, which is why I don't go anywhere and say, Barb Jordan, personal safety is coming and it's $50 a person. I don't do that. Somebody's going to bring me in for a fee and they can bring whoever they want to be. And then I know people are coming because those people want to get their money's worth.
Right.
So that's basically how I do it, which is great. And I did for the online courses, it was a lot of work and it was I just people don't want to turn on the computer and learn, what do you do? Here's a video on charm and manipulation. It takes a lot and it was very reasonable. I don't.
I'm sad about that. And maybe it was a little before its time to an extent because I teach at USC and we're required to take sexual harassment training, I think every year, maybe every year. And it's 5 hours in front of a computer. It's not a light course. And it's exhausting. And I used to teach it. So I feel okay, whatever. I know this stuff. And they also have one on internet safety and that kind of thing. But I would love to see you connected to every university where this is a requirement for freshmen or maybe a requirement for and as well as faculty and staff. Because I think that it's the same adage that you hear in the airport. If you see it, report it. So even if you're not the object, if you see something uncomfortable in somebody else around you, I think it's important to say something. See something, say something, right?
Yeah, I love speaking at the universities because what I'm talking about, people in the audience are like, first of all, some of them are wide-eyed. And I think to myself as I'm doing my thing, their parents never told them about anything. You know what I mean? Their parents totally didn't know how to talk to them. And this is shocking to them, what we're going over. And then there's others in the audience, like they're like this. And they are seeing things. You know, I was in Calabasas in March, Calabasas at Viewpoint High School.
Which is very near where I am. So yeah.
Okay. And so I did a session that's going to become part of my spring tour, doing high school seniors that are going off to college, like teaching them about what's out there. And it told me so much because they reserved 45 minutes during the school day for the seniors. And they said, you know, Barb Jordan's coming in, personal safety, and it's optional. And I am telling you, it was standing room only, and it was filled with the guys and the girls in that room. And I thought to myself, they're seeing things, they're experiencing things, they're hearing things. And like we, at our age, we don't even see the things that they're seeing on social media.
You're right.
And the websites that they're going to that I know about, that I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. But they're seeing those things and they want to stay safe. And, you know, if parents aren't going to talk to their kids about it, I will. I am. And that's why I just think it's so valuable because most sexual assaults at college, I'm sure you know, you realize this, happen, you know, your freshman and sophomore year because you simply don't know what's out there. And you don't know what the first party you go to, you know, 90% of the people are going to get sexually assaulted. And guess what? Those upperclassmen, or maybe even another freshman, are giving you all those drinks for one reason and one reason only. And that's because they want to take advantage of you. I did a class the other night, high school seniors, and a young man comes up to me before the class. He's sitting in the audience. And I say, oh, what are your concerns for college? And he's like, well, you know, organization. And he's talking about these things. And I go, did you know that men are 5 times more likely to be sexually assaulted in college than any other time in their life? And he goes, what? And so like as we go, but people don't know, you know, guys don't know. If guys knew that that was the thing, I promise you, they would make different decisions on, oh, I'm really drunk, I need to spend the night. They'd make different decisions than anybody not here, you know, but go across the hall.
So true. And in those sessions with high school students, do parents show up? Are they invited?
I always try to make it for whatever the community wants. I did a class last year for graduating high school girls, young women, and their moms.
Great.
So the moms came with their daughters, and it was in a very ritzy part of town. And as I started, the moms had their arms around the daughters, and they were holding them close. And I'm like, they've never talked to their daughters about this, you know? But the conversation that, again, like, you got to have this conversation. You know, you can't just let these kids go out there and hope for the best. So I just think it's all important. And I just love the fact that I have the opportunity to do it.
It's essential. It's not just important, it's essential. And I think that sometimes we think that happens out there, not in here. And it's just the opposite. And you're just saying it's about being prepared and having the information. And so it also begs the question for me, not that you need to change anything, but I wonder if safety training or safety talk or however you frame that, I wonder if it's worth renaming it as a more proactive. I'm just trying to think out loud because I love what you're doing so much and I can't help but put my consulting hat on. But I could just see reframing it so that it's a want to. This is a necessity. It's like, I don't know, I can't think of it right now, but something that indicates action oriented that is safety. I understand that, but it's much more than that. Because when I think safety, and that's why I was so impressed by your website and the areas that you cover, because the whole charm, manipulation, and I'm going to add gaslighting, is part of that predator's vocabulary and construct and character, or whatever you want to say. And so when you're not prepared to understand what that is, it's not always as obvious. And yet learning to recognize it and not poo-pooing it for yourself or having others poo-poo it for you builds your own resilience. And yeah, you're going to miss out on a few things. And guess what? You're going to miss out on the bad things. right?
I gotta
Right?
use that line,
Right?
yeah.
And honestly, I think about this and I think every time I said no to something or changed my mind about something that I first said okay and then thought about it, it turned out great. And the things that I was like, oh, I'm not going to worry about it or it's going to work out okay or whatever, did not. Interesting, right?
There's a lot of truth to it. I have read that book, The Gift of Fear, and it's outstanding. And
I think so too.
you said, how was one of the ways that I learned to tie it all together? That book helped me tremendously. Give me a better vocabulary for delivering the information that I was trying to say. Now let me just see more clearly the different stories and the different attacks or manipulations that people do. I was able to define it through that book.
And I want to also emphasize that what you're teaching is not just the prevention of that and the recognition of something that might be totally nefarious, but it's also in relationships that you don't feel comfortable and you just get to not feel comfortable and you get to say, no, I'm not interested in this. This does not work for me for whatever reason. And I think that is not a justification or an excuse. It's a reality for the individual. And once we embrace that, it is freeing and healthy. And that's what I think you're teaching. You're teaching a level of resilience to an outside world that has wonderful, amazing, fabulous people in it and can also be filled with people who decide to take advantage and are more on the predatory side of the world. And we don't have to negotiate with them, figure it out, clinically treat them. Somebody else can. We just have to protect ourselves.
And we don't care if they like us or not. Like,
that's such a good point. Yes. Say more about that.
I go into the gym and I put my head down and I work out. Like I was leaving today and I was like, hey, see you later. Hey, Amy, hey, Joe, whatever, waving. And as I walked out, I said, you've been coming to this gym for about 7 years and you are just now saying people's names, like even saying, hi, how are you? Because I wasn't there. Not that I'm there to be mean. I wasn't there to have friends. That was my release. That was Barb's personal time. And guess what? When I'm having personal time, stay out of my space. I want to have my own thought process. And if I do want to engage, I'll open myself up to engage. Well, if you don't like me and those guys that learn what I do, and now they see me at first, they'd all want, not that everybody wanted to talk to me, but, they'd want to like say hello. And I'd be like, hi, whatever. And now they see me, they know what I do. No, they don't say hi to me anymore. Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, I know exactly who you are. What's why you running the other day? You go look in my eyes. Why you won't look in my eyes?
I love it. I love it. You have X-ray vision. That's what they're afraid of. You know what's going on in their head. That's what they're afraid of. But that's really powerful.
Yeah.
And whether you really know what's going on in someone's head or not, as long as you're recognizing what's going on in your gut or your heart or the back of your neck or wherever it is, and you pay attention to it, that's what really counts. So I have one other question, which I think is a tough one, and it's probably a little unfair. But I'd love to get your take on it a little bit. So, I live in the Los Angeles area, and in so many big cities, there's a ton of homeless individuals. Some are dealing with mental health issues. Some mean absolutely no harm. Any thoughts about whether, they often feel invisible? It's hard if you do make eye contact. Some people think it's an invitation. So any thoughts about a community that has been so disenfranchised? And it may not be a community you're really advising on, but I just thought I'd put it out there because there are accidents that happen when someone becomes vulnerable to someone who may have mental health issues. Not that all homeless do, because they don't, but there's a large percentage who do.
Yeah, I think homeless people, bad intentions, good intentions, mentally ill, whatever it is, to me, for safety, the same rules apply. My awareness is everything.
Yeah.
When you can identify somebody down the street, well, now you can read that situation so much more clearly. But if you don't have awareness and now that person is standing within 3 feet of you, now you're at a disadvantage because you haven't had time to read the situation. Are they that angry homeless person? Are they mentally ill? Are they just down on their luck? Hard to tell when somebody's, this close to you. But when you can see them across the street, when you can see people at a distance with good awareness, it changes how you can interact with people. And every scenario, is different because every human being is different.
I love your response because it really is about understanding your surroundings. So I have two small dogs. I know this sounds like a weird sidebar, but it really is related. And so they're older. So their safety is paramount to me when I'm walking them. And I don't always know if another dog is friendly or not, right? So I have to be aware of watching that other dog, watching how my dogs respond with enough distance that I can pull my dogs away or walk the other side of the street or whatever I choose to do. Sometimes the owner will say they're friendly. Sometimes it's a good friendly. Sometimes my dogs have a reaction. I don't really know why. So it's being prepared in advance to be able to respond when you're not in the middle of it. And I think that is what you're talking about. I know it's weird for me to bring up dogs, but dogs are really intuitive and have a sense all the time. I think they're pretty incredible, and they know when somebody's friendly and when somebody isn't. They also know that about other dogs. It's a fascinating opportunity to observe.
Yeah.
So I do that already. And so now I'm going to add another layer. Not that I haven't done it with people, but I'm going to be much more diligent. And my hope is that is on your website, do you publish where you're speaking if it happens to be open to the public? Or is it usually that you are lined up through an organization and so it's not possible for the general public to come find you and go to one of your lectures?
The majority of times it's an organization, a group, they're bringing me in. And if they open it up, they have the invitation to do it. But most of the time, wherever I go, it's the organization or the institution that is paying my fee, bringing me in. So I don't say, oh, yeah, and I'm going to be, in Northern California, come watch me.
So I guess my encouraging any listeners, particularly organizations, to book you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for it, especially in Southern Cal. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. And every university, as I said before, I think every university and every college should have you. I love that you do high schools right at the get-go before they're, launched to college or, whatever they're doing next. At least they're prepared. But I also think at universities, because once you get there, you might forget a little bit about all the learning that was in that last high school year because it's a new experience. So having it as part of public safety at a university, I think would be enormously beneficial to that school as well as to the students who are receiving your information. And I also love that you have a lot of resources online, that you have information online that people can access and learn about you. And I think it's key to then, if they find you online, they can recommend you to any organization that they're connected to. So it can work both ways.
Yeah, thank you.
So in your experience of working with so many groups and so many folks, were there any aha moments, either aha moments where you saw a light bulb come on or aha moments where you thought, oh, this is going to be a little challenging for them? Any kind of aha moments for you?
Odd in the sense of it's too heavy, or odd in the sense of they're predators and they're uncomfortable being in the room?
Ooh, I hadn't even thought. I was going to ask you that question, but then I thought, is that either way, whatever you want to talk about. But I thought about that. That was my other question to think, can you identify them? And there's a wish to be able to switch them, but I think sometimes that's not easy to do.
No, I will say this, that I think I can read an audience when I speak. I can read a room. I can read personalities. When I am speaking and I'm all around the room, and like I said, it's high energy, I will look at somebody as the presentation's going on, and I'm like, I don't say it out loud, but in my mind, I'm like, something's happened to them. They've been through something, or they've been sexually assaulted. You can see their mind. You can see their faces go white. They change. And with that, I started doing like how you did the trigger warning before we started. I now do a trigger warning before it starts. And I say, we're talking about safety. So some of these, stories are going to be difficult. If you need to leave the room, we all understand this is a friendly environment. It's totally a friendly environment, safe environment. So please, when I've had people get up and leave the room and come and tell me, this is just this past spring, they're telling me and I'm telling them, and they're like, oh yeah, well, somebody left the room, and they come back at the end and they're like, yeah, her friend was just murdered. You can see it. You can see it. If you look people in the eyes, if you watch people, you can see their bodies change.
Yeah.
I got to send this to you. I just want to say, I talk about watching people. I have a video clip of a man who is speaking like this, like, I would never do such a thing. and I am thoughtful, and he's talking in this tone, and this whole thing. And I have the video clip muted, but we're just showing his body. And in the video, he's rubbing his hands, he's wiping his face. He finishes the clip by rubbing his face like this, rubbing his neck, and he's swallowing, and he's not looking at the camera. That's the teaching point is, it doesn't matter how people deliver information. It doesn't matter what they say. It matters what their body language says. Because if that's manipulation and charm. How do you know the difference? Start watching people's body language.
I love that. How do I turn off sort of listening to an extent and just really observe? I think that is such incredible advice. And so have you had predators in the audience that they didn't come out and say I'm a predator, but you clearly would recognize it? And how do you handle that?
I haven't met anybody in one of my groups where I think like, oh my God, they're going to do me harm or somebody else harm. One of my very first classes, there was an individual college student that was harassing another female student, where by the end of the class, she came up and said, he's coming to my dorm all the time. She was scared of him. And in the class, he really acted like a complete idiot. We just thought he was immature, but it was really the fact that the information was getting to him. So there was that. There was another one like at a Rotary Club. As soon as I said what I did and I got to the sexual assault, like the guy gets up and stormed out of her room, and I'm like, have a good day.
That tells you so much. And there's another question I have too, just in my own personal experience. When someone protests too much, I've now learned that they're protesting against something that they're probably guilty of. I've just observed that, and I hadn't thought about that before. When someone goes to extremes, like I've never cheated, I will never cheat, I'm not a cheater. Cheaters are horrible people. They shouldn't even look at themselves in the mirror. They're terrible. They should be, I could never do that. I couldn't live with myself, and became the biggest cheater I've ever met in my life. But it was a really good lesson for me because I wanted desperately to believe him. And he was a really very good liar, charming and charismatic. But you learn. And so now when someone protests too much, I go, that's a little red flag for me.
Right.
And had I paid attention to my gut earlier, I would have recognized that. But I didn't, because again, I was being that good girl. But I've thrown that to the wind at this point. I'm learning to say no and enjoying every minute of it and feeling okay about it. I think the biggest thing, at least for women or for me, I'll only speak about myself, is I no longer need to feel guilty about saying no. And I no longer need to have an excuse as to why I'm saying no. People push you. Well, tell me why. Why do you feel that way? Why can't you do this? Why can't whatever? And I think, no is just my feeling. Can't really put necessarily words or evidence to it, but I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yep.
And I think that you're teaching me in this conversation, and I was coming to it a little bit on my own through my own experiences, sadly, but that I really deeply appreciate you for giving voice to things that I felt and was afraid to come out and be strong for fear that I would be looked at as, a bitch, frankly. And and now I'm like, okay, you want to call me that? Fine.
That's right.
Whatever.
Like I just people say that, and I'm sure people say it like when I walk away. And first of all, I really truly don't care. And second of all, like I try to tell people like, you're never going to see them again. Like, who cares?
Right.
Who cares what they say? Like, that's not a friend.
Right. That's the other thing is you get to make choices about who's in your circle. And you can also have people in your circle whom you might have a little funny feeling about, but they happen to be a work colleague or they happen to be doing business with you. And I think as long as you have really clear boundaries around that relationship and say no to anything that crosses the boundary every single time, then unless it becomes really a safety issue, then I think you're okay. But you have to be really clear about the boundaries.
Yeah.
You cannot wobble in any of those because the wobbling is what gets you into this self-doubt. And I love you just erase that self-doubt, and it's okay to be wrong. It's how you feel. And 99% of the time, you're right. You're not wrong. And that's what I love in what you said. So I've loved this conversation, as you can tell. I mean, I just think you are, I want to clone you a million times over or have you train people under you to start getting them out there, something to spread more of this, because there are courses out there, but you are just powerful and very clear in how you express the areas that folks should really take a look at in recognizing their surroundings and doing something about it before it becomes an issue. And I just love that.
Thank you.
So toward the end of my podcast, I always have a round of quick and gutsy questions, and they're just fun. And so if you are ready, I'll give them to you. If you want to pass on a question, feel free to pass, but I'd love to ask you.
Pass.
You're so cute. They're not that hard. Is that a hard no? Or is that an easy no? Is that a light no? Listen to the questions first, and then maybe you get to pass on each one, okay? Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you. You're funny. That's a hard no, Laura. Forget it. Okay. What is at the top of your wish list for Always Bev? However, the answer can't be money or funding. What's at the top of your wish list for this beautiful legacy organization you've created?
That somebody embraces me like how you have spoken about me in this podcast. I believe my message is important, and I wish that somebody with the means of being a star or somebody embraces me and shares with so many people that I am out here so I can help make a difference.
Yeah, I love that so much. If you were to think of a song that describes Always Bev, what would it be? Or it could be a lyric if you don't have a song.
I do have a song. God, I'm so bad at thinking of the singers. I Am Woman, da-na-na.
Oh, yeah, Helen Reddy.
That's it.
Oh, I love her. That's a great one. I love that. Oh, when she came out to do that, there was so much criticism, and then from men, I think, and so many women just embraced her.
I don't know why that song went away. We should play it every day.
We should play it every day.
Yeah.
It's a good reaffirmation and a good song about resilience.
Yeah.
I love it. Not to be afraid. It's so good. What makes Always Bev gutsy? Because you are gutsy. What makes you gutsy?
I don't feel this, but people tell it to me that it's special what I do in honor of Bev.
Yeah.
She deserves it. So I don't think it's a big deal. I know it's hard to tell her story. It's the worst part of my class is that I have to tell her story. Like I get dressed for a class and I'm like, oh yeah, I have a class today. And then I go, oh, I got to tell them Bev's story. Like I don't like that part, but I think that's it. I think the gutsy part is that I stand in front of people and I show that I'm vulnerable, that our family was schooled and I'm here to help you so it doesn't happen to you or anybody else that you know.
Yeah, that's beautiful on so many levels. And I think the thing that pops out to me is that in spite of the constant reminder, you do it anyway. And that's what makes you gutsy.
Thank you.
It's beautiful. And I wish that your sister is with you every single time you speak.
Yeah.
Because her life now has a purpose.
She always had a purpose. Lord, it always happens to the A-list, She was an A-lister.
Yeah.
But I'm glad people see who she is. I'm glad I can share bits and pieces of her. And I told myself, this next round, this fall will be my 5th year of my fall tour, that I am going to share more of her story and more of who she was. So I'm going to get into that a little bit more this fall.
It's funny, you kind of read my mind. And I think that's also sort of that gut thing that goes back and forth when you're really present with somebody. And I thought to myself, I read the newspaper article and I read on your website, obviously, and a little bit about her. And I think it's beautiful to share the things about her as your sister that you appreciated and who she was as a person, because it brings her to life in a way that I think folks not only recognize, but feel connected to, because she was an A-lister and it sounds like an amazing person. And that doesn't take anything away from the mistake that happened to her. And it was a mistake. It was a mistake. And, do we know anything could have been prevented? That's why you're here. And that's why you're sharing this, which is remarkable. What is something that outsiders, or maybe even a few insiders, don't know about Always Bev?
That I cry after every class.
Yeah.
When I'm alone, when I get back to my hotel room. It's hard. I love it, but it's hard.
Yeah. It has to be, because it's your own trauma too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm grateful because you are so full of resilience and power and strength, and you are human.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get teary. And you're vulnerable, and you're allowed to be.
Yeah.
Which also speaks volumes for all of the people in your audience who have felt that vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because there are so many of us, and you are a gift.
Thank you.
To be able to withstand that, because it's got to be hard. So those tears are cathartic, and I'm really in awe of you. I just want you to know that. So you've changed my life after this episode, frankly.
Well, I've enjoyed talking to you. I feel like you and I can probably talk longer.
I know. So one last quick question, then we'll close out the podcast. If you could get a celebrity, an influencer, someone of status or stature to talk about Always Bev, to help spread the word, who might that be?
Well, it's funny. I just came across her the other day on social media. I did not know that she cared about specifically women's safety. I hope I say her name right, but it's Lori Greiner from Shark Tank.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
She came across my social media the other day, and she did a video on it. I'm really passionate about women's safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, Lori Greiner, you care about women's safety. So in my last post that I did, I tagged her, and I'm going to continue to tag her.
Yeah.
Because I want, and I'm not proud. Like, maybe she'll see me and she'll be like, hey, we should do something together. We should get the word out. I like what you're doing. But I would just say she came across, I always thought Oprah Winfrey, that she understands the problems that specifically women have, that she could be a voice. So yeah, if it ever happens, it'd be anybody that helps me, Laura. Like yesterday, I got an email and it said, hi, Barb, I took your class. I just graduated and I'm going to graduate school. And one of my classes is grant writing. And we have to choose a nonprofit, and I want to write a grant for you. And of course, I'm like, oh my God. But as soon as I saw it, like my eyes just welled up. Like, yeah, that's my one thing. It's like, it's just me. And I always welcome the help.
I love that. And also, you are standing strong in a way that people want to jump in and say, you've moved me enough that I want to join you in whatever way my talent can contribute. So the student